Hi there, Release Fire here. So I'm going to talk you through the Rathian fight and how to beat a Rathian here in Monster Hunter Rise. Hopefully the video is going to help you out. If it does, drop me a like below. But firstly, it's kind of all about getting set up for the fight. Definitely pick up herbs and anything along the way that's going to help you out. However, you also want to be set up to be able to take some of its biggest hits and be able to carry on. You could also do with an extra wire bug, so definitely pick those up. But the things that you're looking for is these little bugs that you can see that I'm picking up here, and some of them give you a boost to your health bar and others boost your stats like your defense stats. So all of these, picking them up will just help you weather the storm a little bit better because it has got some pretty heavy hits, in particular its poison move, so definitely worth exploring. And the intention is that by the time you actually catch up with a Rathian is that you've maxed out everything. So if you throw in a little easy ration or some food, you can take your stamina bar up, and you can also see that my health bar is pretty much maxed out, so that when I do arrive, I can start clobbering it without worrying too much about getting swiped and just being one hit taken out as soon as I get into the action. Now, when I'm actually fighting a Rathian, what I'm trying to do is avoid getting too close and spending too much time in its dangerous central line. And by that, what I mean is the line between its nose and its tail, because what it does is it flies in the air and does this whipping downward swipe, which can really give you a lot of damage. And you can see from that little section there that by using your Silk Bind's heavy move, you should be able to get some nose to tail hits in without spending too much time in that central line, so that you can go on and actually mount it and then get it to smash into the wall repeatedly until you've done even more damage. Alternatively, as I did, you could take it in to fight another monster if you're doing a dual hunt. But if not, it's definitely the best to do the damage and to smash it into the wall. If you're not too sure how to do the Silk Bind heavy move, what you want is ZL, hold it down and press X, and you'll be able to do the heavy move, which should go nose to tail, doing multiple hits. And you can see that in this section where I'm literally just using it repeatedly because it's a nice easy way to stay out of harm's way. I can just get in, reposition myself, get in again, and stay away from that swiping venomous tail attack which you just saw on the screen there. Essentially that, if you haven't maxed out your health bar, is enough to be able to take you out in one hit. So it's definitely a good idea to follow my initial instructions on maxing out your health bar, and then this kind of Silk Bind attack move is a good way to avoid most attacks and still get in some good hits on its weak points. And the weak points for a Rathian are its head and its tail and its wings. If you can get in more attacks there, then you should be able to do a lot of damage. What you should also see is that I have a shockingly blunt weapon, but I'm still able to do big hits on it and not bounce. And the reason for that is, at the moment, at the point of making this video, Silk Bind moves don't seem to bounce, even if you've got a blunt weapon. So they're definitely a good way to do damage, even if you don't have space or time to use your whetstone. I kind of figure this is something they may patch out later on, but at the moment it definitely works a treat. However, it doesn't mean that you're impervious to its nasty tail attack, because sometimes you will just find yourself in the line of fire no matter what you do. You can see there I managed to avoid that one, go back in for another attack, and it managed to swipe me as I was coming in. If that happens to you, then you need to run away, get the antidote in, and use a little bit of potion to build yourself back up so that you can head back in to be able to do more damage. But you can also see that I haven't been one hit and fainted as a result of that one, so it is definitely a good strategy to fill up and max out your health bar before you even start the fight against the Rathian, in particular until you've got better armour. Now you can see here I'm just repeating that process, going head to tail. There are some other moves you can try on it. So for example, with the switch axe, I can use the up and down sweep by pressing X and A to be able to get some attacks on the wing. But for the most part, what I'm trying to do at this point in time is get rid of the tail, and I do that by going from head to tail with the Silkbind move. Obviously, it's going to be slightly different with different weapons, but essentially what you're trying to do is sever the tail, because without the tail, a Rathian is way less potent. It hasn't got as much reach, and it doesn't always get you when it sweeps. So if you can sever the tail, as I have done here, it means it's going to be a little bit easier to face later on. As you can see in this little section, it doesn't have a full tail, so it completely missed me in that swipe. That doesn't mean it can't still get you. Again, if you find yourself stuck right underneath it, even though it hasn't got the full tail, it can still get you and it can still poison you. However, it's just got less reach and less chance of getting you as a result of severing the tail. You can also see from my health bar that I didn't take as much damage from that swipe as I did in earlier swipes. When it's got the full tail, so it's definitely something you want to try to do. And then once the tail's gone, you can spend more time going after the wings, as I'm trying to do here with my up and down axe swings. So that's definitely something to do. Now earlier I talked a little bit about using the Silkbind and not necessarily needing to sharpen. However, you should definitely sharpen your blade when you take on a Rathian, because even with that, you'll still do more damage if you sharpened your blade. As you can see there, I've got a sharp enough blade, and as soon as I land, I did almost double the impacts that I would have done earlier with a blunt weapon. So it's definitely worth keeping your blade sharp as possible in between, kind of as it moves around. You should definitely sharpen up and then go back into the attack. While the heavy Silkbind move is definitely a good one against the Rathian, it does come with some negatives. Firstly, you probably won't do quite as much damage per second as you would with your standard weapon, and the chances of a knockdown are a little bit lower than they would be ordinarily. So that's something to take into account. You can see here when you do land a knockdown, you can do some huge damage. So it is something that you kind of miss out on. You won't get as fast a takedown, but you'll also find yourself not needing an antidote quite as much using the Silkbind attack. You can also see that once you've severed the tail, sometimes if you do get hit, it just pushes you over and doesn't actually deal any poison damage. However, that doesn't happen every time. Sometimes you still can get swiped and poisoned. But this methodology does reduce the potential of that, and also reduces the potential of fainting, so allows you to stay in the fight for a little longer without worrying too much. Now as soon as you start to see it limping like this, you know it's on its last legs. Now I haven't seen in Monster Hunter Rise, I haven't seen a Rathian fall asleep as of yet. It's always been awake as soon as I chase it down. However, if you do see it asleep, obviously you want to use your biggest damage on it to be able to get it even closer. So the large barrel bombs are definitely a good option if you do find it asleep. However, don't get sucked into a false sense of security and just use your toe-to-toe action, because you'll find yourself getting way more damage like I did then. Instead, keep with the strategy. Use that only when you think you definitely got no chance of getting swiped. And if you do get hit, make sure you get yourself back in action as quickly as possible, because even though the Rathian is on its last legs, it can still do a hell of a lot of damage, and you need to stay in the game until you finally finished it off. So then if you return to the strategy, get in with your hits, you should be able to finish off the Rathian without taking too much damage and without fainting yourself. And that is how to beat a Rathian here in Monster Hunter Rise. Like I said earlier, hopefully the video helps you out. If it does, drop me a like below. You can also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, with the link on the left hand side, and check out the rest of my guide and walkthrough series for Monster Hunter Rise with the links on the right hand side. Leave any comments and I'll catch you next time.